A stream of absolutely meaningless information is pouring from all sides, often false, often deliberately false, which comes from all communication channels. Therefore, before explaining something about specific events, you need to know the basic logic. The United States of America has realized that it cannot rebuild its industrial sector on the basis of the domestic market. For this reason, the United States needs to relocate to Southeast Asia and begin to displace China from there. To do this, there is an increase in the number of military bases in the Philippines, for example. This process is quite active, and those who are watching it can see it. The problem is that this news never goes alongside the ones about politics. That is, we currently do not have a systematic view of the overall picture of what is happening. If the United States of America starts this operation, then they must leave Europe and the Middle East. There are two basic forces in the USA. One is the transnational financial elites that Biden personifies. The second is the nationally oriented elites that Trump personifies. At the same time, the internal game is not at all important, because, for example, the appearance in the Republican Party at number 2 of a certain Indian person, who at the same time repeats Trump's rhetoric, only in a slightly milder situation. Because removing Trump, if there is no person who will occupy his niche, is extremely dangerous, it may cost an explosion. Do not forget that according to the American Constitution, the American people have the right to revolt. For this reason, we see that various kinds of events are taking place in Europe. The Soros Foundation is beginning to reduce its activity in Europe. Articles are already appearing that a pro-Russian candidate can win in Slovakia. In fact, he is not exactly pro-Russian, but a supporter of Austria-Hungary, but friendly to Russia. And in this sense, he is very similar to Orban. Now the question. Where did Austria-Hungary come from? It is no secret that there is a battle between London and the Vatican for control of Western Europe. The logic of London is clear. If he departs to a new frontier line along the meridian of Berlin, then this frightens the West to madness. Ideally, if Russia uses tactical nuclear weapons, as a result they will have the opportunity to control Western Europe, which will give London control over AUKUS. The situation in the Vatican is completely different. He wants to make his zone in the form of the former Austria-Hungary and, accordingly, compete with London for Western Europe. It is impossible to create Austria-Hungary without Russian support, so the Pope begins to explain that Russia is a good country. That is, it is not love for Russia. This is an attempt to use Russia's resources to fight London in Western Europe. Just as London uses the resources of the United States of America to fight for Western Europe, the United States of America is in an extremely acute stage of confrontation with Great Britain. Well, because everything has already become clear, the whole situation has been revealed. So, in this situation, the United States of America should have a lever of pressure on Europe. What is the leverage if they withdraw their troops? The only basic lever was the military lever. If they leave, it's completely unclear what to do. Well, there was also NATO as a tool for financing military infrastructure with American money. But this tool also disappears. So, what should I do? We need to keep Europe at the expense of oil and gas. The United States of America is actively engaged in this. Russian pipelines can be undermined both in the Baltic and which go over land. For example, Poland may well do this in the course of its unhealthy activity. And what can be done accordingly with the pipelines that go through Turkey? After all, if the United States leaves Iraq, then pipelines from Iran will run to Europe through Syria and Turkey. So what needs to be done? We need to blow up Turkey. Imagine that in Turkey it will be about the same as in Ukraine today. Erdogan understands this. That is, the logic under which it is necessary to fight for Southeast Asia was thrown even into the expert field at the beginning of this year. Erdogan should have won the elections first, because if he had lost them, it would not have mattered. And now he has to save Turkey. And what can he talk about with Putin then? Only about one single thing, so that Putin repeats what Lenin did in the early 20s, when he saved Ataturk. And why should Putin have done this? Apparently, Erdogan had to offer something. Recall that literally the next day, the Turkish foreign minister flew to Iran and announced the visit of the Iranian president to Turkey. Iran is very dissatisfied with what Turkey and Azerbaijan are doing under British pressure. The Armenian president is definitely pulling Armenia into NATO, it was said in plain text. And if NATO is in Armenia, then Erdogan will have no chance to escape in this situation. Because the task of the United States of America is to prevent oil and gas pipelines. By the way, in this place, the United States and England have the same interests. Because if there is oil and gas from the east, it will be very difficult for England to manage it. Because Germany and France have already realized that a quarrel with Russia is bad. And for this reason, it cannot be ruled out that there is some kind of conspiracy for three between Erdogan, Putin, and Iran, in which Putin and Iran offered Erdogan some scheme, and Erdogan, with some probability, having arrived in Sochi, accepted this scheme. A conspiracy to squeeze out external forces from the region, which are dragged by small players through Georgia, through Azerbaijan, through Armenia. And Erdogan was clearly told, if you act like this, then you have a chance, and if you don't act like this, then I'm sorry. And the details will be discussed by the ministers.